Good morning, guys. So here's our objective that we're learning today. We are learning how to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism with fractional edges by measuring it with fractional units. So let's get started thinking about what that means. So a fractional unit is when you have a cube that's not a 1 unit cube, it's like a half unit cube. So let's take a look at this slide. So in the dark blue model, you see a 1 inch cube, but I want to know, if I use blocks, how many 1/2 inch cubes can fit inside the 1 inch cube. So right here I have a 1/2 inch cube, and I want to know how many it takes to fit in to the 1 inch cube. Now in my head, the first thing when I tried to do this in my head without visualizing it, I thought, okay, well 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1. So it should just take 2 of the 1/2 inch cubes to make a cube. But then I tried that. So I have 1 and I have 2. So I put 2 together because 2 halves makes a whole, but I have a lot of empty space. And so then I reminded myself that I'm working with a prism, and a prism has length and width and depth. So there's 3 dimensions. And so I have to account for the length, the width, and the depth. So it does take 2 to cover the length, but now I need to cover the depth, which is from front to back. And so I have to add another one there to go from front to back, but then also there's one back here that I can't really see, but it's there. Okay, so this looks a little confusing because they're layered kind of wrong. But now I've covered the depth, the front to the back. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the height. So I have one here, and then I will have another one here. Okay, now, so I have 4 on the bottom. I'm going to bring this to the front because it's kind of hard to see what's happening when it's in this order. Okay, so I have 2 in the front, and I have 2 in the back, but I still have some space. So I have 4 back here and 2 up here. So I need to cover the whole cube. So when I do that, I'm going to add 2 more. So this one moves up to there. Now it's starting to look better. It's kind of hard to do this 3D stuff on a computer. So this one goes here. Do you see that? So before I put this one into place, I know that I have 2 on the front and the bottom, and then 2 on the back and the bottom. And then I have 2 on top and the back, and then now I'm going to have 2 more. So how many of these 1/2 inch cubes did it take to fill a 1 inch cube? Well, if I count them, I have 4 right here in the front, and then I also have 4 in the back. And so 4 plus 4 tells me that it takes 8. So the answer is 8. It takes 8 of the 1/2 inch cubes to fit inside of the 1 inch cube. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay. So now here's my next question. How many of these 1 inch cubes does it take to fit across the length of this prism? So this prism has a unit of 10 units long. The depth is 4 and the height is 6. So how many of these 1 unit cubes does it take? Well, if each cube is 1 unit and the length is 10, then it takes 10 to go across, 4 to go from the front to the back, and 6 to fit the height. So if I multiply 10 times 4 times 6, if I were to fill this with cubes, this entire red prism would take 240 of these smaller unit cubes to fit inside. But here's the next part of my question. So how many half-inch cubes would it take to fit inside of this red prism? Now remember, for every unit cube, it takes 8 of the half-inch cubes, or the half-unit cubes. So if it takes 240 of the 1-inch cubes, how many of the half-inch cubes would it take? Now remember, there's 8 half-inch cubes in every 1-inch cube. So how many half-inch cubes would it take to fill here? Well, if it's 240 1-inch cubes and there's 8 to 1, then I would take 240 and I can multiply that by 8. And 240 multiplied by 8 is a pretty big number, right? 240 multiplied by 8 is 1,920. So it takes 1,920 of these half-inch cubes to fit inside the red prism. It takes 240 of the 1-inch cubes to fit inside of the prism. So let's look at our graphic organizer and let's fill out some of that. And so on the graphic organizer, whoops, that's not it. The graphic organizer is right here. Okay, so I want to know, I'm going to look at these first 2 columns, and it says how many of the smaller cubes fits into the 1-inch cube. Well, if it's a 1-unit cube, it just takes 1. And then we learned that for the half-inch cubes, how many half-inch cubes fits into 1 unit cube? Well, we learned that that was 8, right? So that's what we know so far. So I'm going to come back to our lesson. Let me minimize that. And now I want to look at the 1/3 inch cubes. So remember, I was looking at half and now I'm looking at a third. So I know that it takes 3/3 to go across, because 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 is 1. So I'm going to do the back because the back seems to be a little easier for me to start with. So it takes 3 to go in the back. Okay, so I've covered the length. But I want to cover the depth. How many does it take to go from the front to the back? Well, it's going to take 3 more. Right? So now I need to fill this in. And so I'm going to fill in the middle. And then I'm going to fill in the front. And this is really tricky to do with a 2D computer screen. I'm not very great at that. So the bottom row, the bottom story, the bottom level is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so there's 9 on the first bottom level. Now I have to fill all the way to the top. And so how many levels will I take? Well, I'm going to take 3 levels because it's 3/3 makes 1. So I'm going to do this 2 more times. So if I have my first row has 9, my second row is going to have 9, and then my top row will have 9, right? So I could just keep doing that. So if I have 9 on the bottom plus 9 on the top, let me do this, 9, and then another 9 in the middle, so 9 on the bottom, 9 in the middle, 9 on the top. How many of these 1/3 inch cubes will fit in here. So 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27. So if I come back over here to my graphic organizer and I scroll down, how many of the 1/3 inch cubes fits into a 1 inch cube? Well, the answer is 27. So now that we know that, what do we think about a 1/4? How many 1/4 inch cubes will it take to fit into a 1 inch cube? Well, it would take 4 across, right? Then 4 from front to back, and 4 from top to bottom. So my bottom row is going to have 4 times 4 would be 16. And then I'm going to have 4 rows of 16 or 4 levels of 16. And so what would that be? 16 times 4 is 64. Now you have a graphic organizer too, and so you're going to take what we're learning and you're going to add that to your own graphic organizer. You're going to do an 8th, and you're going to do a 6th, and you're going to do a 5th as well. So the last part of this lesson, it says how many 1/3 inch cubes would fit across the length, the width, and the height of the box. Well, I know that it takes 240 unit cubes. And I know that there are how many of these 1/3 inch cubes in one blue cube? There's 27, right? So how many of the yellow cubes would it take to fit? Well, if it takes 240 blue cubes, I'm going to take 240 and I'm going to multiply that by 27, because it takes 27 of the 1/3 inch cubes for every unit cube. So 27 times 240 gives me an answer of 6,480. So that's your answer.